Welcome back. We're here for our quoting session, and this is a very important session. Obviously, we want to make sure our franchisees get the quoting process right. I'm not here to give you a secret formula, sometimes franchisees assume that we'll have a formula to give you, and you're going to get it right every single time. But what we will give you is some of the do's and don'ts. But before we start, when you get a lead, you'll have on the lead itself, you'll have your customer's name, surname, phone number, address, and what they want done. So I'll just show you an example of what a lead may look like. So all the new leads start with a dollar figure, which means that's a brand new lead. Now, if there is no dollar figure, it could be a chat, which means it could be an existing client or a pickup, which will mean that it's a customer that's actually specifically asked for you. But we'll have the customer's name, surname. So we always ask for their full details and their phone number, their address, and what they actually need. And it will have their email address as well. So I'll just use an example. This is not my real email address. I'm just using it, not that I don't want to give you my real email address, but I'm just going to show you an example. And I'll just say Herald Sun. And the last part is we'll actually include the service that they actually need. So before you make the call, you'll know if they're calling for a vacat clean, you know if they're calling for a full detail or a cut and polish or a carpet clean, depending on the division that you're in. And we'll use different examples. And in this case, I'll just say clean once. This is a cleaning example. And we'll give you car detailing and carpet cleaning and window and blind examples shortly as well. Now, this is on your phone. You get a text message. You'll have my details. You have my phone number. You have my address, my email address, and what I want done. Now, not to put pressure on you, but the first 30 seconds of your phone call is crucial. And the reason for that is, according to the research that we've done, and this is not just our research. It's you can search on Google other customer service and quoting processes. Most people decide, a very high percentage of people decide if they're going to use your services or not within the first 30 seconds of that initial phone call. So you could be the best carpet cleaner, you could be the best car detailer, you could be the best cleaning franchisee in the country, but if you're failing communicating to your customers within the first 30 seconds, you're going to struggle converting leads into jobs. So it's very important to get the first 30 seconds right. Now, I'm going to come back to this, but there's two words people love hearing. Right? Remember this, love heart. There's two words that people love hearing, and one of them is their name. Now the good thing is you have their name. So when you speak to your customers, sometimes I see franchisees, I listen to franchisees talk to their customers, to their leads, and they get straight into it. They start talking about making bookings when they're available, which is all good. But what I recommend is to build that relationship first. Ask them how their day's going. Make sure you refer to them by their name. Say, hey, Ali, how's your Monday going? How's your weekend? How are you coping with coronavirus, with all this craziness around the world? Just examples, but build that relationship with your client. You don't have to get straight into, hey, you want your cleaning done, when can I book it in? You don't want to go through that process, because that's what most people do. Build that relationship, and people love hearing their name. So remember the first 30 seconds, we said it was crucial. Now, two words they love. One of them is their name, and the second word they love is the word three. Now, the idea is to make sure you use these two words within the first 30 seconds as much as you can. Obviously, don't say things like Ali this, Ali that. It's just more about make sure your sentences do make sense. But when you can use the word for free is I can organise a free, no obligation quote. And again, if you can get the first 30 seconds right, there's a high chance, very high chance, you're going to convert these leads into actual bookings and jobs. Now, always say there's always a reason why people call us, okay? And if you can prove me otherwise, please let me know. This is my real phone number, by the way, 0413 402 153. More than welcome to call me. But there's always a reason why people call us, you know. Why? And the reason, you know, obviously don't ask the customer, why did you call us today? But it's more about, you know, no one wakes up in the morning and says, hey, I'll just call Jim's Cleaning and I'll waste their time. Let's arrange some quotes just for the sake of it because I've got nothing else to do. That doesn't happen. There's always a reason. If you know the reason, it'll make your quoting process a lot easier. And I'll give you some examples. The reason could be because I've got a real estate inspection. I need the house cleaned before the real estate comes around. It could be because I'm selling the car. I want it, you know, really good polish and tidy up and clean it up. It could be because I've got a conference on next week and I want this room in particular cleaned up. It could be after or before, post party cleanup. It could be, you know, wife's come back from holiday and overseas and I trashed the house. I need the house cleaned. Whatever the reason, if you know the reason, it will make your process, your quoting process a lot easier. And again, there's different ways of asking instead of just saying, hey, why'd you call us today? You can be more creative and say, look, when you're speaking to the client, you know, the customer might say, I really need this job done before Saturday. And feel free to ask them, you know, why does it have to be before Saturday? Can I do it on Monday? Can I do it next week? And the customer may say, oh, I actually got a conference on Saturday and I need the room cleaned before that. So you can get to the reasons by asking the right questions. Now, it's important. There's a lot of clues in this lead itself. And I always say, you know, when you actually get a lead, spend a couple of minutes on it and do some research. And what I mean by research is in the previous sessions, we talked about, you know, copying the address and pasting on Google and seeing what comes up. You know, if you copy the address, that's an address for the head office. You will realise it's not a home. It's actually a large complex. So that's what I mean. And you don't know that by just looking at the numbers here. You'll only know once you start investigating. So if you quickly type 48 Edinburgh Road, Mooroolbark on it, Google, you'll see it's Jim's Group head office. It's a large complex. There's probably hundreds of rooms. So you should treat this customer so differently to a domestic client. That's you know, standard 3-bedroom home. Again, I'm not saying the whole idea is for you when you're speaking to the client, you can make references as well, you know, and say, look, I realise you're in a large complex. Why do you only need one room, or why is it a clean once? Is there additional rooms, or is there a particular reason that you just want one room cleaned? Now, I always say the reason why I wrote this email address, as I mentioned earlier, it's not my real email address, but just to give you an idea, and I see this all the time where a lead comes through and they've got an email address like heraldsun.com.au. So that's obviously that customer actually works for Herald Sun or has a position in Herald Sun. Again, that could be there could be opportunities within that business itself. They might be calling up to get their home cleaned, but at least you know you have possible, you know, it's a good conversation starter. You say, look, I realise that you're working at Herald Sun. That could be Toyota. That could be Ray White Real Estate. So all of a sudden you actually know, you know, where that customer, obviously it's hard to tell with Gmail and Hotmail accounts, but if they have a specific email address, that could lead into other possibilities, other jobs as well. So just make sure you keep an eye on the email address. That's a good indication of where they work. In some cases I get, you know, not very common, but you know, we had a case a couple of weeks ago where a franchisee forwarded a lead to us saying, look, this is a dud lead because the phone number was wrong. And again, that could happen. Sometimes the girls in the call centre or this customer may give us the wrong digit. You know, it's a human error. That could happen. And what we can do is we can actually go back to that call recording and listen to the call recording and see if it's a issue with customer service or if the customer itself gave us the wrong phone number. But if always look at where they, I've actually, with the example I was talking about earlier, with a couple of weeks ago, where there was a wrong phone number, they provided the wrong phone number to us, and what we used was we actually called up the company they were working for, and it was only a 1-digit difference, and we just got the phone number from them. So and spoke to the client from there. So always the email address. Obviously, you can always try emailing as well, not just calling the client, but that plays a big part on the quoting process. So we talked about the first 30 seconds. Talked about the 2 words I love, which is their name and the word "through," and we worked out why they called us. And the next step is for you to follow some of the golden rules. And this, as I mentioned, this is more about cleaning at the moment. I'm going to come back to car detailing, carpet cleaning, windows and pressure and blinds separately, because they all have individual cases where you can actually quote differently to other divisions. So golden rule number 1 for cleaning is do not quote over the phone. Simple. And the reason why we say don't quote over the phone is you can have exactly the same house, next to each other, 3 bedrooms. One can take you 2 hours to clean, one can take you 2 days to clean. You really need to see it before quoting it. Now that's easy to say, and sometimes it's you get the customer to ask you, the price straight away over the phone. How much do you charge? Very common question. And the best way to answer that is, I really need to see it. I don't want to overquote you, and make it easy for the client that you're local, and you actually can go out there and give a free quote with their name, with no obligation. So do not quote over the phone. And in some cases, the reason why we'll go back one step, and again we'll go to a reason why people are asked for the price. Let's go back one step and go, obviously it's a very common question. How much do you charge? How much do you charge per hour? How much do you charge to clean my home? How much do you charge to clean my car? But the reason they ask for the bottom line, and obviously some people say, they might have a budget. Yes, that's true. They might be comparing your quote with your competitors. Again, yep, that's probably true as well. Or they simply want to know how much they're expecting to pay. They're all correct answers. But saying that, most of the people will ask for the price because they don't know what else to ask for. So obviously a lot of our clients are domestic clients, and the reason why I say this is, I'll repeat, a lot of our clients actually ask for the price because they simply don't know what else to ask for. And I can confidently say that because I've gave thousands of quotes, domestic quotes, and the first thing the customer will say, how much is it? When I deal with corporate customers, or when I deal with tenders, if you ever go for a tender, the price is one of the last things they ask for. Before the price, they'll be asking if you're police checked. They'll be asking for your insurance. They'll be asking for your MSDSs. They'll be asking for your safe work method statements. They'll be asking for references for them to make some calls and see if you are what you were saying. And obviously, if you get all the green ticks, then one of the last questions is about price. So if you compare the domestic customer to a corporate customer, your commercial customer, your corporate customer knows what to ask. Well, your domestic customers, obviously, they don't call up for cleaning all the time. The only thing they can ask for is for the price. They don't know if you're police checked. They don't know if you have insurance. They don't know if the products that you're using are safe products. We have our own Jim's cleaning products, obviously enzyme products. They're not chemicals. They're very safe to use. And we have a full session on this later today. But they don't know. Your customers don't know that. So what you need to do is you need to educate your customers during your initial phone call. You need to talk about, just for your peace of mind, we are police checked and we have a 10 million public and liability cover insurance. I'm not saying anything's going to go wrong, but peace of mind that we are fully covered. And if they're comparing your prices, if they're comparing you with your local competitors, there's a high chance that they won't have insurances, they won't have police checks, they won't have the gym's cleaning products. They ask for the price simply because they don't know what to ask for. Now, back to golden rule number 1, do not quote over the phone. Obviously, what you can say is when people ask for the phone for the quote, you can say, I'm actually around the corner. You've got the address, and you can make references. You can say, I realise you're just off Mooroolbark Road, or you're off Pascoe Vale Road, or you're off Hume Highway. So you can actually make references to where they live, and you say, look, I'm actually in town, close nearby tomorrow morning. Would you like me to organise a free quote for you? Are you available tomorrow morning? So make it easy for them. You could be coming from another side of town, but you sound very local to them by making references to where they live. But in worst case scenario, let's assume this customer's really pushing for the price, and you realise you're going to lose this lead by not giving a price. I would start asking some questions. And the questions include how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what they need cleaned, when's the last time they got it cleaned, do they have any pets, do they have any children? So you paint a picture in your head, and obviously trying to understand what the customer needs. Once you do that, I will give them an estimate. I will say, look, from what you're telling me, this job will be worth anywhere from $150 to $800. Okay, give a big gap between the estimate, and you'll probably have a bit of a silence on the phone with your client, and say the reason for that is I'm giving you a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. But let me come out tomorrow morning and I'll give you a free quote, no obligation, and we'll go from there. So if that doesn't work, unfortunately, there's not much else you can do. But I'll say, our estimated conversion rate for our franchisees is between 70 to 85%. Again, some franchisees convert a lot higher to 85 to 90%, and my answer to them is you're probably too cheap. It's a good idea to increase your prices, but a perfect ratio is 85% conversion. So if you're converting between 70 to 90%, I'll say, you're in a good spot. If you're converting below 70%, you really need to consider your first 30 seconds. You really need to consider how you handle some of the difficult questions that you're getting from your clients, and your franchisor will be the best person to speak to. Obviously, at the start of your franchise, with your confidence level and with your experience, your conversion may be a bit lower than 70%, but that's where you want to be. Now, rule number two is we do not quote, and again, I've seen franchisees do this, but the whole idea is we do not quote per hour. And I'll come back to this. Now, the reason why we say we don't quote per hour is it leads to a lot of complications. Sometimes customers may have what they think it's a job should take, like you should be able to clean it within 3 hours. Or sometimes a job could take a bit longer than usual, or you have additional machinery or equipment that you work faster through at a faster pace. But you should, these are the reasons why you don't quote per hour, we quote per job. So when people ask you how much you quote per hour, I normally will return back saying, look, we don't actually quote per hour, and the reason for that is we actually quote for the job. So I'll be here until you're satisfied, until the job is complete. So there's no surprises at the end of the day. And most customers appreciate that, so that there's no hidden cost, there's no surprises at the end of the job. And I'll give you a real example where a cleaning franchisee quoted $45 an hour for a particular job, and he was there with his partner, with his wife, and they were there for 2 hours. So the customer was expecting to pay $90. You can see where this is going. So the customer was expecting, 2 hours, $45, $90, where the franchisee quoted invoice for $180 because there were 2 of them. That means there were 4 hours, and it worked out to be $180. And the customer called and complained, saying they're only here for 2 hours, and the deal was $45 an hour. So you can see that you can actually receive, there could be a lot of complaints or a lot of miscommunication with clients as well. So do not quote per hour. The best way to answer that question is we don't charge per hour, we quote per job, and we'll be here until you are satisfied with the job, until the job is completed at your satisfaction. Now, this is a different, so you've probably heard these two rules before, but this is one of the rules that I came up with. Ignore these terms. So when customers say these terms to you, I will say ignore them. And these terms include average, basic, standard. And I'll give you the reasons for it as well. Or some people say, I want a full detail, not knowing what the full detail inclusions are. Average, basic, standard, general. So when someone calls up and says, I want a basic clean, very, very, very common term. I just want a standard clean. Again, a very common term. You know, what is a standard clean? And your standard clean and the customer's standard clean could be different. Your average and your customer's average could be a lot different. And I'll give you a bit of a personal story, and I'm hoping that you won't actually underquote like I did. But when I first started as a carpet cleaning franchisee, one of the first leads received was actually in Toorak, one of the welfare suburbs in Melbourne. And the lady that I spoke to, she was a very elderly lady. She was probably 75 or 80 years old at the time. And she said, I've got 3 rooms that I want carpet cleaned. At the time, I was quoting $25 a room for cleaning, standard carpet cleaning, steam cleaning. And I said, how big are the rooms? And she said, they're average size rooms. I said, no problem. I said, I can do it for $25 a room. 3 rooms will be $75. And she confirmed, she booked it in for Saturday at 10 o'clock. Now, when I drove into the driveway, I knew there was a problem. It was a mansion, right? So I'm stressing in the car. I knew something was not right. I knew it wasn't going to be average size room. So I rang the bell. And like I said, she was an elderly lady, and she showed me one of the rooms. Now, believe it or not, one of the rooms was actually bigger than my house. The other 2 rooms were also quite big. And I went back to her. I said, look, Mrs. Smith, I clearly remember asking you how big the rooms were, and you said they were average size rooms. And she confirmed. She goes, yes, I remember. I go, and she goes, I've been living here for 45 years. She goes, they're quite average for me, but it wasn't average for the rest of the country. But that's what I mean. So, and guess what? I did that job at $75. I started at 10 a.m., finished at 4 p.m. on a Saturday for $75. And that's when I came up with this rule. Ignore these terms. So when people say it's average size, when people say I want a basic clean, when people say I want a standard clean, when people say I want a full detail, okay, you need to go through in more detail. Obviously don't say I'm ignoring you or ignoring these terms, but just say, can I ask more questions? Would you expect me to clean the walls? Or would you like your windows done? So ask more questions and make sure you're on the same page as the customer. Now, rule number 4 during the quoting process is to work out how long each job is going to take you. How long? And the best way to do that is by actually itemising the services. Okay? Obviously, this is for your own reference. This is not for the customer to see, so it's for your own reference. So what I mean by itemising is, walk around with the customer and work out what they need: vacuuming, dusting, mopping, cleaning the window, cleaning the oven, cleaning the kitchen, bathrooms, and make a list. And don't get pressured into giving a quote right there and then. Just ask the customer if it's okay if you go back to your van or to your car and work out the quote, and it'll take a couple of minutes for you to work it out. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my car and I'll say, okay, the vacuuming will take me 15 minutes. The dusting will take me 10 minutes. Cleaning the kitchen will take me 1 hour. Cleaning the windows will take me 1 hour. And I'll work out how long it's actually going to take me. And always add under half an hour, especially at the start of your business, I will add under 20 or 30 minutes to your calculation just to cover, make sure you're safe because some of the things can take a bit longer than usual. So what you'd work out is, let's assume that it's going to take you 4 hours. Okay, so again, this is not for your customer to see, this is for your own reference. Next step is for you to work out, I'm running out of space here, is how much you want to earn per hour. Now, don't get stuck on this. Sometimes franchisees get stuck on that, where it's not really. It's more about getting the quoting process right. Your hourly rate will vary from job to job. I haven't seen any franchisee that actually get this right or get a standard hourly rate for every job. It's impossible. Some hourly rates, some jobs you might be on $45 an hour. You work out some jobs you'll be on $65 due to the upselling that you did, and some jobs you might be on $40 an hour. So it really depends on what the service is, and sometimes it could take a bit longer than you. So don't get stuck on there, but it's more about getting an idea on how to quote or what to quote. And let's assume that you want to earn, again, I'm just giving an example here, $55 an hour, including GST. Okay, that's your goal. Now, in some regions, that could be 50, 45. In some regions, it could be, we have franchisees that make more than that. We have franchisees that make less than that as well. But it is a good starting point. Now, ideally, in this case, so we've got 2 more rules, but before I go to those rules, in this case, how much would you quote? The answer is, I can hear you saying 220, which is the wrong answer. So next part is what we call GST. Simple rule. Okay, in Australia, GST is 10%. In New Zealand, GST is 15% at the moment. And you should always add the GST to your calculation. And you should all be GST registered. And again, if you need help with that, you can ask your franchisor. But the whole idea there is you should add the GST. So it's $55. Sorry, I think I mentioned it's GST inclusive before. It's not. So that's how much you want to earn. It's 4 hours times 55, which is 220, and I would add the GST to it. So which is 10%, which works out to be 242. This is for Australia. For New Zealand, you'll need to add 15%. Okay. So you can see where we're going. Again, your customer doesn't see how you work this out as yet, because you don't want to quote them per hour, but this is for you to work out the calculation at least. And don't get stuck on this, but this is just the easier way of working out your quote. Now, my last rule, I'm not going to write that there, but do not round off. What I mean by that is sometimes franchisees will say, yep, no problem, it's $250 or $240 or $200 or $100, regardless what the quote is. It just doesn't sound professional, okay? So here we worked out, it's 242, that's how much I'll quote. Now, if you're quoting, let's say if you quoted $100 or if you quoted $300, for me as a customer, that feels like you just pulled that out of nowhere. You just pulled it out from your pocket. Is it really worth $100? I hate receiving quotes where franchisees say it's $100. It just doesn't sound professional. Or if it's $1,000, it just doesn't sound professional. Is it really worth $1,000? It feels like doesn't feel right. But if you give a quote that's exact spot on, 242, including GST, it sounds a lot more professional. And that applies to if you go to if you ever go to a car dealer, they'll never give you an exact amount of $30,000. They'll say the best price I can do is $30,250 for you. The whole idea there is to show that's the best I can do. And idea in here, you want to have a professional quote. Do not round off. That is the price. That's your quote. Now, I can hear some questions about surcharges. If you're obviously with if the customer's planning to pay with a credit card, with Visa or a MasterCard, how do you apply surcharges? In my opinion, I don't like paying for surcharges as a customer, and I don't charge surcharges to my clients. So therefore, I would say if you are going to charge a surcharge, I would add a couple of dollars before the quote, not after. Don't make it look like it's part of the surcharge, but you can say, look, my FPOS machine's costing me $200 a month. I service 100 customers. That means I'm going to apply $2 for each client. Regardless if they pay cash, bank transfer, or credit card, I'll just add $2. So I'll make that $244 in that case. with every client. I wouldn't show it as a surcharge if that's what you want to do. But I've seen some franchisees say plus 2%, plus 3% surcharge. Now the rule, it's law, you can't make profit on the surcharge. So whatever the surcharge that you're paying, there's a surcharge you can apply to your quote if you're doing it that way. But like I said, the best way to do that is work out how much it's costing you, and you can add it to your cost of invoicing, regardless of what they pay with. And it'll only be a couple of dollars per invoice, if not even less than that. Now, so going back to the rules, do not quote over the phone, do not quote per hour, ignore these terms such as average, basic, standard, full detail. Work out how long it's going to take you, and if you need to itemize your tasks. Work out how much you want to charge. Again, that could vary. Add the GST, and rule number 7 was not to round off, round down or round up your quote. Now, some of the other questions I get asked is, what happens if it's an urgent job? Can I charge more? Well, the answer is yes. But remember, one of the other earlier sessions, we talked about giving value to the customers. And again, I'll give you a real example where a franchisee actually received a lead on a Friday morning. This was a carpet cleaning franchisee in Melbourne. Received a lead on a Friday morning, and the customer needed their carpets done on that particular day. Now, she lived in Docklands, one of the high rises, and it was only a studio apartment, so literally one room of carpet. The franchisee quoted $100 to do the job. It's literally a 15-minute job. The customer was actually very happy to pay the $100 because she needed to give the keys to the real estate because she was vacating on the Friday afternoon. And the reason why she called us on the Friday was her carpet cleaner that arranged, a different carpet cleaner, let her down. So she was actually happy that we could fit her in. She was happy with what she was paying, and the franchisee went out there that day on a Friday afternoon who was doing the job. So it's a perfect scenario at the moment, but what the franchisee did after it was totally wrong. So while he was cleaning that one particular room, the customer went up to him and said, she said something like, thanks for coming out. I was really desperate. I was willing to pay up to $400. Now, that's what she said, and he automatically assumed that he actually underquoted, thinking, wow, this was a $400 job. I'm only getting paid $100 for it. So after spending a couple of minutes, he went back outside and said, look, actually, I had a look around. There's a couple of stains, and he changed his quote to $380. Obviously, she was desperate. She needed an invoice for the job to give to the real estate. She needed the carpets steam cleaned that day. She had no other choice, so she actually did pay him $380. But she did call on Monday and lodged a complaint. And when I spoke to her, and I confirmed the case with the franchisee as well, he confirmed pretty much exactly the same things what she said. He just pretty much said, I assumed I underquoted because she was willing to pay up to $400. She actually told me that she was willing to pay up to $400. But when I spoke to the client, what she said was, I was so happy until he changed his price. I was going to get him to clean my other property that I'm moving into. I was going to get him, I was already speaking to my sister and my other family on how good this guy was. I was going to give him more work, a lot more than $380 worth of work. So you missed out. It's not me that missed out. It's you that you missed out, and I won't be calling gyms again. Now, she said, I won't be calling gyms again. Not gyms cleaning Melbourne, not gyms carpet cleaning Melbourne. Obviously this franchisee, or you are, representing 4,000 other people. So we really need to make sure you give value to your customer, even when they're desperate. We don't take advantage of your clients. The whole idea is, do the right thing, and it will come back to you. That lady is a perfect example. That customer is a perfect example of, if you do the right thing, who's going to have probably $500 or $600 worth of work coming from her over the next few days. But it wasn't it for hit and run, which was not the right way of thinking, and we take that very seriously within the gyms group. Now, another question I get asked is, what happens during public holidays? Can I work on public holidays, or should I charge more during public holidays? Again, the answer is yes, you can definitely work. And you can definitely have a surcharge, and you can be honest with the customer because they look, you want me to work on a Good Friday, you're going to pay a little bit more than my usual rate because I don't, it's public holiday, it's my day off. But if you want me to do it on Thursday, it will be, I can do it a lot cheaper. Again, you need to make sure there's value to the client. There could be a valid reason, and sometimes the customer may not have any other options than that particular day. So therefore, yes, you can charge more. Again, don't go overboard. Don't double or triple your money. You can have a little bit of a surcharge, but you still need to give value to your customers. Now, obviously, quoting is one of those things where this is normally what we do during these sessions is we'll do a role play where I'll be the difficult client and I'll be asking, obviously you don't have to go through that, I'll be asking difficult questions on how much you charge per hour, how much you quote, how much is the job, and questions like that. But I can't do that over there during this course, but it's a good idea when you do the on-road training with an existing franchisee, it's a good idea to have a look at the way they deal with their clients, have a look at the way they speak to their clients and how they quote as well, so they get to see the real experience. Obviously following these rules will make your quoting process easier. Now let's go back to other divisions. This is more for cleaning, for carpet cleaning. After my example with the Turak example, I went after that job on the next day I went to Bunnings and I invested in what they call a laser measure. It's a little gadget you can get from Bunnings for about $150, and what you do is you put on the wall and it measures, it's with a laser pointer, it measures what the distance is. So you do it on both walls and times them, so if that's 3 meters and 4 meters, so it's 12 square meters. And I used to quote over the phone saying, look, for carpet cleaning we charge $2.50 per square meter. Average size room could be anywhere from $25 to $30. But what we can do for you is we'll measure up exactly before we start and give you a free quote. And again, that would mean if I did that with my Turak example, I would have measured up. It's one of the rooms was 200 square meters, for example. So I would have actually went back to it and said, look, we charge $2.50, and this is how much you're paying. So with carpet cleaning, you can actually give a square meter charge. Again, you don't want to confuse the customer because not many customers will know how many square meters their room is. So you'll need to give an indication of, you're talking about $30 or $35 a room, but you'll give a free quote before you start the job. And again, using the laser measure actually looks very professional. When you walk in there, you're actually working out exactly, you're not overcharging or undercharging the customer. And the other rules still apply. You don't really need to work out how long it's going to take you because you'll know each room will take you a certain time, but you should still ignore these terms. Don't quote per hour and do GST and do not round off. Those rules still apply. With car detailing is actually one of the only divisions that we can quote over the phone. And the reason why we say that is we know what a Toyota Camry looks like, we know what a Holden Astra looks like. But again, you need to ask the right questions. If it's a four-wheel drive, if they've been off-road, ask if they have kids because that makes a big difference, especially with younger kids. If they have any pets, pet hair removal should definitely be extra. But again, we have with car detailing, we have a price point for each service. For mini detail, for cut and polish, for full detail, we have price points, and you can use those price points in the area. And again, you need to remember it's a from price. You need to make sure the customer understands it's a from price, and you give it an exact quote when you're at the job. With window cleaning and pressure cleaning, again, it's a good idea to see the property before you quote. So the same rules apply. But when you're out on the road with window cleaning franchisees, there's different formats of quoting, and one of them is quoting per panel. What they say per panel. And it could be, again, those figures could vary from region to region, from state to state, but speak to your local franchisor and franchisee and work out how much actually they quote per panel. That's a good way of quoting. With the pressure cleaning side of things, again, you can quote per square meter, and again, that varies from area to region as well. So you just need to make sure when you're out on the road with doing on-road training, ask those questions. Now, blind cleaning repairs, for the blind cleaning, you can actually quote, for the cleaning side of the things, you can quote per blinds, depending on what type of blinds it is and what type of cleaning you're going to do. You can actually have a set price for, per blind. And for the repair side of the things, most repairs of blinds is a quick repair, what we call, under 15 minutes or under half an hour. What you do is you have a minimum call-out fee. So that could be $88 or it could be $99 or it could be $110. And so look, it's we have a call-out fee of $110, and I'm confident that I can, that applies to the first 1 hour, and I'm confident that we should be able to repair that blind within that time frame. So again, giving a minimum call-out fee for blinds works really well, because most of your jobs could be, sometimes I see franchisers saying it was a 10-minute job, it was an 8-minute job, where obviously you need to have, you can't go there for $20, you can't give them a quote for $20 because it won't be worth your time. You need to make sure you have a minimum call-out fee, especially for the blinds division. Well, the minimum call-out fee really applies for all divisions, but I'm using blinds as an example because they get a lot of the 10, 15, 20, 25-minute jobs. That's all I have for the quoting side of the things. And again, if you have further questions, please ask your franchisor, and you will underquote. Sooner or later, you will underquote, I can guarantee. I've spoken to hundreds of franchisees, and they all have different stories. Hopefully not bad as my 2X story, but you will underquote, and what you need to do there is learn from it. You've got to look at the ways, what went wrong. I've estimated 4 hours and it took me 16 hours. What happened? There has to be a reason. I thought cleaning the walls was much easier and it took me a lot longer. Or you really need to learn from your mistakes. Like I said, you will underquote, and there'll be times that you overquote as well. So it works both ways. But the idea is to learn from your mistakes, and if you need to add your own rules, you can. That's the beauty about this business, where franchisees sometimes come up with me and say, "Look, I've got this. I'll follow this process, and it works quite well." And again, if you have any success stories, share with your franchisor, and we can share with the rest of the country. Thank you, and we'll see you next session.